It is conference championship weekend, and I am going to try to not crash out, because I'm a little annoyed. This is Newbie Sports. Once again, no title card. We're just going to jump right on in. Conference championship weekend, there are 9 games of note. There's the group of 5 conferences and the 4 Power 4 conferences. Rest in peace, Pac-12, otherwise there'd be 10. Anyways, coming up on tomorrow's games, we have the Sun Belt at featuring Troy and James Madison. Now, I'm going to be wishing for the most amount of chaos possible. So I think I'm wrong with my pick here. But I'm going to pick Troy to defeat James Madison University. And I'm going to pick them to win 33-24. We'll break down why that is exactly as chaotic as it is a little bit later. Conference USA, Kennesaw State against Jackson State. I think Kennesaw State's going to win that 34-27. The American Athletic Conference, the only group of 5 conference featuring 2 ranked teams. The only group of 5 conference championship game featuring 2 ranked teams. Why James Madison is ranked below Tulane? I don't know, but here we are. North Texas, 24 North Texas and 20 Tulane. I am actually going to pick North Texas to win this. I know I put my prediction out to be Tulane. I'm not going to be disappointed if Tulane wins this, honestly, but I think North Texas is a better team. And I think North Texas should be ranked higher. I think North Texas is going to win this game 38-35. It's going to be tight. 38-35, North Texas. Now, BYU's old home, the Mountain West Conference. UNLV at Boise State. Now, Boise State is favored to win this game, but I predict that UNLV is going to win this one. It's another tight game, 42-38. 42-38. And I know this one takes place on Saturday, but the last group of 5 conference is Miami, Ohio versus West Michigan. And I think West Michigan wins this 27-23. Now on to the Power 4 conference predictions. And then we'll get to the chaos. I actually have a few things before the chaos, but there we are. I have my notes here. I'm doing this in a way that I don't have to make any edits, so you're going to see the duct tape on this, and here we are. I'm going to switch things around on my notes. But the Power 4 Conference Championship games. Early in the morning, the Big 12 Championship game featuring 11th ranked BYU. I'm angry about that. I'm not irritated, I am angry, and we'll get to that. 11th ranked BYU versus 4 Texas Tech. One reason why I'm as angry about this as I am is Texas Tech is also a one-loss team from the Big 12. And they lost to a worse team than BYU. Now, they should be ranked above BYU because they have the split. But because they're saying Texas Tech is so good at 4, BYU should be getting a lot more respect than they are. Because Texas Tech's loss is worse than BYU's loss. Only reason Texas Tech should be in front of BYU right now is because they beat BYU. Anyways, Big 12 championship game. You might be surprised about this. I am going to pick the Cougars to win this game. 31-26. I think they fixed their yips. I think Bachmeier has been welcomed to the NCAA enough to be able to adapt, and so has our coaching staff to be able to adapt to this. I don't think it's going to be a blowout win. I think it's going to be tight, but I am convinced that BYU is going to win this game, tying the series up at 31-26. Now, that comes up with a lot of other stipulations that we'll get to. And I'm going to that game, by the way. I'm going to be in Arlington, Texas, watching that game. So I'm looking forward to the experience no matter what happens. And BYU should be in the playoffs no matter what happens. but the fact that we even have to have this conversation is a travesty. Once again, we'll get to that later. The SEC, number 3 Georgia and number 9 Alabama. I'm going to pick Georgia. Mostly out of spite, but I'm going to pick Georgia. 38-35. It's going to be a tight game. I don't think Alabama's a horrid team. They've not been playing well the past 3 weeks. 2 out of the last 3 weeks. It's hard to say with that middle week because of who their opponent was. But lost to Oklahoma and barely surviving at Auburn. I don't think you're playing your best football. I think you're playing like you did at the beginning of the year against Florida State. And I think it's going to show. I'm personally rooting for the gap to be a lot larger than 3 points. But if I'm going to be honest, Georgia wins this game 38-35. Kick the field goal. Anyways, on to the Big Ten. Indiana versus Ohio State. I am going to pick Ohio State to win this game 42-33. Now, if they get matched up later on in the playoffs, that's going to be a different thing. But yeah, on to the ACC. Duke and Virginia. Virginia is not favored by more than a touchdown. I'm picking Duke to win this game. To be a 5-loss ACC champion. And I'm going to pick him to win 40-29. It's a weird score. I think it's going to be a weird game. It's already weird. A 5-loss team is in the ACC championship game. Anyways, there we are. On to the chaos. Now, I just highlighted a situation where Alabama and JMU loses, and then BYU and Duke wins. That is, according to the SEC supremacists and the elitists that are turning up their noses at the ACC and the Big 12 conferences, that is the worst case scenario this weekend, is if BYU and Duke win and Alabama and JMU lose. Here's why the JMU part is in that. If JMU loses and Alabama loses, then, well, if JMU loses and Duke wins, Duke is the key part there. If Duke wins and JMU loses, and UNLV wins, they're going to take that spot. They're a 2-loss Mountain West championship team, and now they've won their conference championship game. They've played an extra game. They have one fewer loss than any of the other group of 5 teams. North Texas and Tulane, one of them is going to be in no matter what because they're ranked, and one has 1 loss and one has 2 losses. If UNLV wins, JMU loses, and Duke wins, UNLV is going to the playoffs. UNLV is getting that 5th spot. That is wild. But if JMU loses, Duke wins, and UNLV loses, Kennesaw State is going to take the next spot. Because they're the next best group of 5 championship team with 3 losses. And I think a 3-loss group of 5 champion is still better than a 5-loss ACC champion. Now, if JMU loses, UNLV loses, Kennesaw State loses, and Duke wins, a 5-loss Duke team will get that spot in the playoffs. This has the potential for so much craziness this weekend. A lot would have to happen, but it is still possible for Duke to go to the playoffs at 5 losses. If Duke wins, JMU loses, UNLV loses, and then I'm just realizing UNLV's playing against Boise State. Duke's not going. Duke's not going. I removed the Duke thing. So let's adjust this. If UNLV wins Duke wins, and JMU loses, UNLV's in. If Boise State wins, then that's what changes. Kennesaw State's not going. Boise State's a better team than Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State's not going. I removed that from my prediction. Am I going to edit that out of the video? No, I'm going to keep it in. Because duct tape. Yeah. Man. This whole situation is just horrid. Absolutely horrid. And I'm going to try to keep my cool, and I'm going to try to not crash out. Because this BYU team is the lowest ranked 11-win team since the college football playoff started. The lowest one. And their only loss is to number 4. Let's look at the losses for people that are in front of us, shall we? There are 2 teams that have better losses than BYU. Oregon, their only loss is to Indiana, number 2. And then Ole Miss, their loss is to Georgia. Georgia's only 1 spot in front of Texas Tech, by the way. So that's only barely that much more. But everybody else in front of BYU. Let's look at Georgia. They lost to number 9, Alabama. Texas A&M lost to 13, Texas. Oklahoma has 2 losses, and they lost to 13, Texas, and 6, Ole Miss. Alabama's losses are the worst on this list. Alabama lost to 8, Oklahoma, and unranked, and I'm pretty sure not bowl eligible, Florida State University. Oh, but that was the first week of the year. They're playing so much different. No, they're not. No, they're not. You cannot look at that loss to Oklahoma and that barely squeaking out a win against non-bowl eligible Auburn and say that they're playing like a top 10 team right now. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. Last team in front of us, Notre Dame. First 2 games of the year was Miami and Texas A&M. Those currently stand at 12-7. Last I checked, 12-7 were higher numbers and lower ranks than 4, Texas Tech. There's also 2 of them. Again, Notre Dame is the only team I've ever even seen to have their first 2 losses not take them out of the top 25. Their first 2 games were losses, and they're still in the top 25 of the AP poll. Now, they have won all their games since then. I don't give a rip. Oh, the big conversation right now is who should be in, Miami or Notre Dame. None of them. None of them. Notre Dame doesn't want to be involved in a conference. Notre Dame should not get the benefits of being in a conference. Miami lost 2 games in their conference and is losing out on their conference championship game to number 5 loss Duke. Because you are behind 5 loss Duke in your conference, you should not be in the conversation. Texas and Vanderbilt should both be in front of Notre Dame and Miami. I can accept that. Vanderbilt should be in front of Texas. No. Their strength of schedule is tight enough that I'm okay with Texas being in front of Vanderbilt. But there's that. Alabama, if the committee's being honest right now, should be in the same spot as BYU. If you lose, you're out. Should be the case. If you lose, you are out. BYU, once again, is a 1-loss conference champion participant in the Power 4. This is so disrespectful, and I'm livid. I'm absolutely livid. One of the biggest things I'm livid about is that Utah was dropped again. You might be surprised that I'm livid about Utah being dropped, but I'm livid about Utah being dropped because Alabama has played worse than them, and Alabama has been rewarded, and Utah has regressed. Alabama has gone 2 out of 3 in the last 3 weeks, 1 to a nobody team, and the only win amongst Power 4 play was a barely squeak it out of your butt win against Auburn. A team that is not a horrible team, but has not played well and has a history this season of throwing games away, including this one. If Auburn didn't throw this game away, you would have lost. And then the head of the playoff committee to be like, oh, they when they went for it on 4th down to take the lead, I just knew that was the team that we were going to be putting ahead. No. What was there, like 15 punts that game? Neither team was playing well until quarter 3. And then once quarter 3 happened, it was Auburn that was playing well. Alabama had a good drive in the second half, and that was aided by stupid idiot penalties from Auburn. You have to take the totality of the game in play. Oh, and they went for it on 4th down. I don't give a rip. I don't give 2 craps if Alabama went for it on 4th down. I don't care. That drive was aided by penalties. And yes, they won, and they deserve to be in the conversation because they are only a 2-loss SEC team. I'm not mad about that. What I am mad about is Utah went down a spot by beating Kansas State. I think that was deserved because they didn't play well. Vanderbilt played really well and stayed put. And then Utah manages to end a series of bad drives to come up with a win against Kansas. And they are dropped 2 spots. Once again, this kind of delights me as a BYU fan. But if you are going to drop Utah for having to squeak out a win, one of those wins was against the team the same caliber as Auburn, Kansas. Yeah, I think Kansas State is the same caliber as well. Kansas State and Kansas. And Utah wins by more than Alabama won by. They also scored more points than Alabama scored. And they fall, and Alabama advances. You are not using the same metrics. Utah is a Power 4 team. Alabama is a Power 4 team. I understand that Alabama is in the SEC. They're both Power 4 conferences. If one team plays bad and they regress, that is the rule you must apply to everybody else. Utah either needed to stay put or advance 1. Or you just don't advance Alabama and you have them stay put at 10. Because if they stay put at 10 and they lose, you can have the 2 group of 5 conferences be 11 and 12. And they just don't move up because they lost their conference championship game. I would have been okay if Alabama stayed put. What I cannot stand is that the conversation is between Notre Dame and Miami, and basically all of the people are like, oh, BYU could do it too, I guess. We're just going to pull out our phones while we're while we're calling this game, and we're going to talk about the game that's on my phone instead of the game that I'm being paid to commentate right now. I'm being a little petty right now, but I am crashing out. I am so livid about this. BYU has been screwed. The only thing in the playoff era that is a bigger screw job at this point in the season was Florida State 2 years ago. Florida State won their conference. They should have gotten in. BYU is in their conference championship game, and the only loss they have is the number 4 in the nation. They should be in the playoffs, no matter what happens. The whole thing was with Clemson a couple of years ago too. They play. I can't remember if it was Notre Dame or or who, but they played the same team 4 times in a season, 3 times in a season, because of how the conference championship ended up and stuff. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. If you're going to create a metric that you have for the SEC, it needs to apply to everybody else too. Alabama did not win that game. Auburn threw it away. With penalties, with turnovers, and with idiot play at the end of the game. Not that last drive. They only had 7 seconds. You can't really do much with that. So, all but 2 teams in front of BYU have worse losses than BYU does, including Texas Tech. If you are being honest about how good BYU is doing right now, they should be 7 or 8, not 11. And they should be in the playoffs. Period. Period. End of story. No question. So, this is really bad. How do we fix it? I propose that a rule change I guess not a rule change, but just some formality on how you are going to weigh conference champion participants. I think that all conference champion participants should be treated as if they have 1 fewer loss than they do, including group of 5 teams. I think that will handle a lot of drama with who's actually better than who. If you get to your conference championship game, you need to be rewarded with that. And I think the reward that makes the most sense to give you still some kind of incentive to go to your conference championship game is to have conference champion participants be weighted as if they had 1 fewer loss than they do. And then what do you do for the undefeated conference champion participants like Oregon and Indiana? And then North Texas, if they were undefeated still. How you treat these teams is you reward them and you weight them as if they had an extra win. This is mostly to benefit the group of 5 champions. Because an undefeated group of 5 deserves to have a definite spot in the playoffs. Absolutely no question, in my mind. So, if you reward the undefeated conference champions with an extra win in terms of weighting and comparing other teams, and then you treat all of the other conference champion participants as if they had 1 fewer loss, that eliminates a lot of issues. A lot of issues. Because Alabama would be able to be where they are kind of unquestionable. And a 1-loss Alabama in the top 10, I agree with that. And if they're weighted as such, yeah, absolutely. Georgia, being weighted as if they're an undefeated SEC conference champion participant, yeah, give them that 3 spot. I'm all behind that. I'm all behind where they are right now. Texas Tech, being weighted as if they're an undefeated Power 4 team. Absolutely give them the 4 spot. That's how we can make this make sense. And then Ohio State and Indiana being already in front of everybody, you have to give them a way to determine if they're actually better than the other teams in the conference. So you give them the extra win, and then they stand apart from everybody else who's being weighted as if they are undefeated. I think that this is a definitive metric that the playoff committee can use to remove any question about who's who. In summation, I'm rooting for a lot of chaos this weekend. With that chaos, I do believe BYU will win, and I do believe Alabama will lose. We'll see what happens. BYU should be in no matter what. And the fact that this is even a conversation is what is wrong with the college football playoff system right now. Oh, we just shouldn't even play our conference championship game then if it's going to root against us. Well, it's already rooting against BYU by only having 1 loss. So I don't accept that rationale. But it is you are incentivizing a loser's mentality, playoff committee, when you do things like this. When you put basically undefeated teams out of the picture. Notre Dame and Miami should be done. The conversation should be moved on from them. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse now, so I'm going to wrap it up. But go Cougs. I think they're going to win. I think Alabama's going to lose. I think Notre Dame's not going to go to the playoffs. This has been Newbie Sports.